Okay, so welcome you guys to our April edition of our webinars. This month we are talking about how to vacation the right way and how you as a leader can take a stress-free vacation and actually enjoy your time off.
Shocking, it's possible.
Okay, so again, welcome. We're going to basically go through Taylor's spectacular process that she's developed. And that includes, we'll go over obviously the dilemmas in vacation. We all know what those are. Basically the 3 steps: making a list, organizing and delegating, and then prepping for the game plan, what needs to happen, how it needs to happen, getting through the re-entry process, and then we will dig into Q&A if anybody has any questions they want clarified.
All right, so let's dig in. So the vacation dilemma. So I have a quick Instagram versus reality. I think we can all kind of relate to this. This is obviously where you think you're going on vacation. And then unfortunately, sometimes this is what your vacation actually looks like. I think we all have the idea of like, you can answer a quick email while you're on the beach, sipping your spritz. And then the reality is it's like, oh, shoot, I actually need to access my computer. I need to, do whatever. And then you're stuck in your hotel room. And while your hotel room may feel a little bit nicer than your office, you're looking at the beach, you're like, oh, my friends and family are at the beach and I'm not. So I know I have been there and it's very frustrating. So that's kind of always the dilemma of the vacation in our heads, right? And then you have the impacted innocent bystander, as I like to call it, which is your team. So what does it tell your team when you're on vacation, but then you're constantly popping in and working? And I think on one side of it, it's like, I know as a leader being like, but I want to show up for them and I'm going to show them I'm supporting them even when I'm gone. But like, what does that actually tell them, right? Tells them that, oh, while you're on vacation, you actually are still working instead of just handing over the reins, planning in advance, and truly being on vacation and truly giving yourself kind of that break that you need so that you can come back refreshed and rejuvenated, and ready to go again.
Well, also, what other expectation does that set for your team when they go on vacation? Are they expected to work on vacation? Are they expected to jump in and check their emails? We don't want that. I mean, in a rose-colored glasses world, we want them to go out, rejuvenate, regenerate, and come back and, do the best that they can do because they have now taken the time for themselves.
Totally. So, and like being that person that is the team member that has gone on vacation, like there's a part of me that's the overachiever that wants to be like, no, look, like I'm still working while I'm on vacation. Like I'm your best employee. But like, really, that's not what you want. You want that person to like truly be gone and come back again, refreshed and like ready to go.
Yeah. So I know you have a process now for vacation planning and whatnot, but before you did, what were the things that came to your mind when going on vacation? Like what went through your head?
Oh, like, I don't think I really did a lot of planning ahead of time. So it would be like, a day or two before I'd go on vacation. And it's like, oh my God, like I've got to hand off all of these different things. Like who's going to do what? Do these people have access? Like, and it would kind of be like bombarding stress right before you're going on vacation, right? And then you kind of leave in this like spastic state and like you don't feel like you're really checked out. You need to recheck in. It's like, oh, if you have problems, contact me. So I think part of it is like, I would be stressed. I'd be stressed of, do I know these things are going to get done, right? And having like the faith or trust or knowing that somebody can get in to do the thing while I'm gone. And just feeling like I do need to like check in and check on things or double check, was that person's like payroll processed, right?
Yeah. I'm sure everybody can relate to that one. I'm sure everybody can. So speaking of your process, obviously we're going to talk about that today. What is that first process or first step in your planning for vacation process?
So first step. So first step is the list. So backstory to this is I created this process when I was planning for my wedding and honeymoon. We were fortunate enough to plan a trip to Thailand, and we were going to be gone for 2 weeks with once all things were said and done. And so it was like, oh gee, and with the wedding too, it was like really like 3 weeks. And so I was like, okay, I need to prep for this because at that point I was our accounting manager, and a lot of people relied on me for a lot of things. I was the final sign off on file reviews and that sort of thing. So the first step was making the list. So basically what you're going to do is look at the time period that you're planning to leave for, and you're going to track everything that you do in that week, the month, the whatever that you're gone, right? I mean, now we have like some colleagues that have not with our own team, but outside of our team that have taken 2 months off and have had very little contact with their team, but done it really successfully. So you're going to want to make a list. So tips for figuring out that list, because sometimes your calendar doesn't tell the full story. So time tracking apps. So I know a lot of people still track time to different clients, projects, etc. So looking at that and kind of looking historically, okay, during, this time of the month or this time of the quarter, these are the things that I do. And these are the things I've tracked time to. So looking at your historical time tracking. One of my favorites is my internet history browser when I'm trying to recreate the picture of my life. It's like, well, what did I do today? And I think that's more helpful for figuring out, what like kind of is your day-to-day things. I think you'll have a better idea of like your bigger picture things, right? Like, oh, I'm responsible for doing this sales thing or this marketing thing. I think those are the big ticket items that are pretty easy to figure out, knowing like what calendar period are going to be gone. But it's more of like your day-to-day tasks of, okay, so looking at like what websites did I go to and why? Who did I message today in Teams or Slack or whatever and why? And then your email sent folder too. So like, what are the kind of one-off miscellaneous things that pop out throughout your week that are only going to you that you have the answers to, that you're the one responding to. So those are
I know. I never even thought about looking at the period of the month or quarter that you're going to be gone and comparing that information to that period, because there's something that could happen in the first week that doesn't happen in the third week. I never even thought of that. So thank you for that one. I'll use that for Italy. So once you have this list and all that fun stuff, how do you make sure that all those things on your list get done while you're not there?
So the second thing is to basically organize and delegate your list. So I create 3 buckets. So the things only you can do, but like actually the things you can only do. Before people started popping in, Alexis, like I was asking you, when you're planning your trip to Italy this summer, how are you going to handle sales calls? Is there going to be somebody else that can handle those things? Because right now you are the sole person, and ideally you are that person. And there's a part of me that thinks like, no, like you are the only person that can do that. But like, is that actually true? So like digging into, are you the only one that can actually do it? You're the only one that actually does it now. You may be the only one that has the access to do it now, but like, do you have to be? So really digging into that and identifying why you're the only person that does it. And if there's a way to open up that control or that access to whatever, so that somebody else can do it while you're gone and you're not responsible for popping in while you're away to, whatever, process that payroll again. So that's the first bucket. Second bucket, things you can delegate. These are obviously a little bit easier, but still identifying how you can delegate them. Hopefully you can get most of the bucket 1 into bucket 2. And figure out who and how, and you can start to kind of like think about like what that process looks like. And then the last thing is thinking about like what the bottlenecks are. So again, these aren't necessarily like the tasks or the calendar appointments or the projects that are on your plate, but more like, you know, if somebody needs to take vacation, like who's approving that, right? You're probably a bottleneck to that as like a leader in your company.
So what about things like passwords or tech access? I know you are the primary provider of that kind of information and support in that information. What do you do in that regard?
Yeah, so again, those are all bottlenecks to processes, right? Like you're onboarding a new client, somebody's password needs to get input, updated, whatever. And so you've got to think like, is there a person right now on my team who I can give access to? And I would start that access before you're actually planning to leave to like kind of trial run it. Or if you don't necessarily have a team member that is ready to take on, you know, whatever this responsibility is, whether maybe it's the passwords or the vacation approval or whatever, thinking about, is there maybe an external person that you could delegate these things to while you're gone? You know, a business coach, for example, or a colleague that you work closely with. You know, a lot of people have team members that are, you know, truly kind of the worker bees of the business, and life can't happen without those people, but maybe they don't want to give them access to like their entire payroll system, which totally makes sense. So thinking about somebody that you can kind of delegate certain things to, in that respect, and we'll get into that like a little bit later. But again, like thinking about that ahead of time and then start trial running it before you actually get there.
So I was going to ask you about leadership tasks as well, but it sounds like that would kind of be the same answer for leadership tasks that we have that maybe only leadership or the owner of the business, whatever it might be, is in charge of. It sounds like we would just kind of do the same thing. We'd have somebody that we know that would essentially be responsible for those kinds of things, whether it's doing an interview or, you know, things like that. Maybe that's just
Yeah, totally. And like those are the types of things too where you can ask yourself, okay, does this actually have to be done in the week I'm gone or the month that I'm gone? Can I do something ahead of time to give the information to somebody else to execute at the certain time frame? You know, maybe it's like you need to do an employee review or something. Just move it up a month or push it back, or, you know, but maybe if you move it up a month, like their raise isn't going into effect. Like there's, I think, ways to like plan for that and move a lot of those tasks. And I think the key thing here is to realize like, if there are leadership tasks that need to be done that really only you can do, plan to move them up or plan to move them back, but create a plan so that it's not like, oh shoot, this just isn't going to get done and now I have to do it when I get back, right? It's like already scheduled on your calendar for when you get back, or you've already made preparations to do it before you go.
Oh, makes sense. Totally. Okay, so now you have your buckets.
I've got my buckets. The game plan.
Game
So
plan.
this is the actual physical kind of takeaway that I created as like step 3. So this is like a living document. And for us, it's housed in our workflow system where all of our different workflows are and like the different steps and tasks. This could easily be like a Word document, an email that goes out before you leave, you know, that you've created kind of the steps as you've prepped. But so there's kind of 3 sections to my game plan. And you would essentially, as you're prepping it, work through each of the 3 sections. And like there's kind of a mix between like checkoffs as well as like a checklist for you, as well as a resource for your team. So this is something that you'll want to make available to your team, whoever is kind of needs whoever would need you in a day-to-day scenario while you're gone. So section 1 is out of office prep. So this is really like more of a checklist, but you're going to want to create an email strategy. So my go-to email strategy is 2 weeks before I leave, I edit my signature to have like a little asterisk that's like, just a heads up, like I will be out of office from X date to X date. And that's basically giving everybody kind of in your email world that heads up that you're going to be gone. Then once you're going on vacation, I would suggest putting your out of office on the day before you leave and not activating again or not turning it off until like a day or two after you come back to give you a little bit of breathing room. So you're gonna, when I'm filling out this game plan, I'm immediately putting a calendar reminder on. Okay, 2 weeks before, put your asterisk thing in your signature. A day before, turn on your out of office. 2 days after you get back, turn off out of office. So it's already there for you. You don't have to remember offhand like when and when not to turn these things off. Another thing, assign your key team lead. So this is that person that maybe they're on your team, maybe it's an outside advisor, a business coach, a close friend that does something similar to you that can easily step in and knows your world, a close colleague. But somebody, it'd be ideal if they're on your team, but totally understand that some people don't have that person, in their wheelhouse right now. So identify a key team lead who is going to be your point person when you're gone. And then schedule your pre-departure meetings. So depending on how your team is structured, sometimes, if you kind of have all one level of like worker bee team members, maybe you just do a meeting with all of them. You're going to run through the completed game plan with them and walk them through each of these kind of the next couple of steps, so that they're really clear about who's responsible for what while you're gone. So that's pre-departure. And then return recap meetings. I like to schedule meetings for the most part with each of my team members that were kind of delegated while I was gone to check in and say, how do things go? What do I need to know? What happened while I was gone? And this is also a great time to identify like where some holes were in the process. Sorry, that was a lot of info.
Good. It's all good info though. Okay, so we have all this kind of set up. So we talked about pre-departure meetings. So what's the process for actually getting your team on board for that vacation? Like, what's that process look like?
Yeah, so that's section 2. So this is like the true checklist. So you're going to kind of take what you did in step 1 and 2, the organize and delegate and creating your list, and organize it here. So work reassignment. So this would be like in our world, we're really client driven, right? So this would be like, I'm responsible for so-and-so's payroll on this date. So I'm going to reassign that. And in this document, it's going to have, so-and-so's payroll is reassigned to team member A. In my pre-departure meetings, I'm working through that with them. I may even hand that off a couple weeks ahead of time to make sure the process flows smoothly. But you're going to have any type of like true work thing and who they're delegated to. Again, this is like a nice little resource, because if you suddenly get an email that's like, I need to change payroll, then somebody can come here and be like, okay, team member A is responsible for that person's payroll. I'm just going to outreach to them to reassign. And by I mean who's ever looking at your email. So we have work reassignments, chain of command. So different processes at different point people. So like when I left for my honeymoon, I had, I was responsible for file review processes. Well, I'm going to give that responsibility to a different person. And if they needed assistance, maybe they would then go to somebody else. So maybe looking at like your team, you can designate one person on your team to handle X process. But if they needed some additional support, your end person is going to be your key team lead. So you want to kind of span out the responsibilities so that not everything is falling on your key team lead, but typically the end person in this chain of command is the key team lead. But that might look different too for different companies, because you may have more of that, of the delegation of different aspects of your company. So it's really telling your team this person is responsible for this task and has the end all be all say if there is confusion. Okay, I gotta get going. Tech stack access. Making sure people have different access. Again, I'd recommend trying this a couple weeks ahead of time just to make sure there's no glitches. Things to think about: approval requests, meetings. If you have weekly meetings with your team, who's gonna be responsible for those? Who has access to your emails, your communications, right? We don't want people outreaching to you while you're gone and not having any sort of, lead to who is supposed to be doing this process. The other thing on this too, which is a great reason to give somebody access to your email, deleting the spam. You also don't want to come back to like 500 emails, right? Like it would be nice to have a clean email folder structure. We recently did a blog on this, and I dive a little bit deeper into this into my blog, the different email buckets that we use. New work, sales, like who's going to be responsible for that? Who's going to be responsible for checking voicemail? So essentially you work through this, you figure out who's responsible for what, who's going to be your point person, but it's all documented in this list. Again, for your team to be like, oh shoot, this client said they left this person a message. How do I get access to her voicemail?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, let me look at this document. Okay, so-and-so has access to her voicemail.
Yeah. So another thing I want to add to this that I kind of took away from your honeymoon is you creating this delegation and handing things off to other people really showed us the abilities of other team members, and that we can take things you were struggling to get done because you were so overloaded and actually pass them down to other team members. So it was almost like an experiment where we could have taken it back if we had to, but we found that a lot of people did a really good job in covering, and they just kind of assumed those things, and we benefited from that as well as benefited from getting you back. So now you have gone on vacation or honeymoon, and now you come back. So what does that re-entry process look like?
So the re-entry. So you already have your meeting set up. So start with your key team lead meeting, right? That person's going to be able to tell you a list, kind of an overview picture of like what happened while you were gone. So those are kind of already scheduled. You want to obviously remove your email notification or wait a few days and then remove your email auto response. And then we have remove tech stack access. So you may have given people access to things that they only needed for that period of time. Just friendly reminder to remove them. Again, this is kind of in your game plan checklist. So it's like your checklist when you get back in office. And then update the process for improvements for next time. So there was a couple things in this that like maybe we didn't think of the first time, or maybe look a little bit different for your team moving forward, or would work better a different way. Update this game plan so that it's there for your team to use moving forward. That's another thing about this game plan is it's not just for leaders. We just had one of our team members who was gone for like about a week and a half, and she used this to prep for her out of office too, right? So some of the things are going to look a little different or do not apply, but for the most part, all of the kind of like checks and balances are there, and it gives them like a really nice framework to work through. And then the last thing, just to your point on when we were on the previous slide, Lex, don't feel like you need to take everything back. If you delegated things and it worked well, think about leaving them, right? It's kind of a challenge to like, great, I'm going to get this off my plate, and actually I'm going to leave it there. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So do you want to go into this?
Sorry.
No, I was just curious, like how, like I'm going on vacation on August 26th. When do I start this list to then figure out what fill out the template for the project and then do my meetings and all that stuff? So when should I really start and look at my schedule and all that fun stuff?
I think that kind of depends on how long you're leaving for. If you're leaving like a week or something, like a week at a time, maybe look at this list a month in advance.
Okay.
If you're leaving for a full month, I'd probably start this like 2 to 3 months in advance, just especially steps 1 and 2, right? Like creating the list and like the game plan, you're really going to craft probably like a month to a couple weeks in advance. Like you're leaving for almost a month, I would probably craft this a month in advance, because then you have it. You can just kind of make changes as you go, and you can start to prep team members. Versus like if you're leaving for a week, again, like, you know, the couple weeks at the start of the month in advance, you're making your list, you're getting yourself organized. 3 weeks or 2 weeks before, you can start having those meetings, and then the week before, it's like the true handoff of the thing. So I think it kind of depends, but especially if you're leaving for a long time, I think the sooner the better, because you can just start your running list, and then it's not like a rush to do it.
Yeah. That's the only question I got.
Okay, so key takeaways: start with your list, organize the list, challenge yourself to give up that control, and then create the game plan. So prep work, the while you're gone section, and reentry. And then just don't forget to make improvements for next time. And that is it for today.
2 minutes to spare.
I know, that was a long one.
You guys have any questions or anything, or ideas or thoughts? Nope, nope, nope. Carol has a question.
Sorry, I'm late. So I did another appointment. Are there going to be handouts so I could see something? Because I think that overall, for the whole topic itself, was so exciting for me, because at any point you can be out. And I thought this was just a great concept overall. I thought it was excellent.
Yeah, so we're recording the video. It'll be up on YouTube, and we'll share it out with everybody. So you guys will all get access to the webinar or whatever it is. So
yeah, we can fill out the slide deck too. But
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a great point, Carol, is like this could also double as kind of your emergency plan. So like in the event that you are out, kind of like what is the game plan? I love that idea. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to make our team fill that for their emergency plan.
just in case.
And it happened to me when my dad passed away, so what I mean? Like, and I was caught off guard. So I would have loved something like this at any point. So thank you for doing it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no problem.
So Tori says, this was great. I'm getting ready to leave town for 3 weeks and I don't have team members, but this gives me ideas on how to better handle my absence. Good, I'm glad. And if we can support in any way, just let us know. All right, I guess that is all for now, guys. Well, thank you guys for coming to our webinar, and we'll see you probably next month. No, 2 months.
Yeah,
right?
Quarterly. Yep.
Quarterly.
And I will not see everybody because I will be out on maternity leave, and I will be using this plan to craft who is going to help Alexis with her webinar. All right, guys. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye.